Good day. I'm really glad you've joined us again for another edition of Conversations. Of course, this is a discussion on the Gospel of John, and we will be talking about John chapter 12 this week. So if you want to just stop for a moment and read John 12, I would certainly encourage that. Several interesting things happen in here, not the least of which is what we call the triumphal procession of Jesus into Jerusalem. It's what most Christians celebrate on the week before Easter, called Palm Sunday. Jesus is going into Jerusalem. Everybody is celebrating that triumphal arrival of what they believe to be their king. And of course, we know that later on that week, he's going to die and be resurrected to life. We're not quite up at that point yet here in John chapter 12, but we'll get there. What's interesting about this is that it follows hot on the heels of Jesus raising Lazarus from the dead. I suspect a lot of the people who are in that procession, or at least who are praising God and praising Jesus and welcoming him, have seen that. And so it becomes one of those particular issues that makes a lot of people believe him. However, there's a contrast here. We've seen through the Gospel of John quite a bit that there are those who believe and those who don't believe, those who struggle with trying to believe, and yet still those who just refuse to believe. Maybe you're in one of those categories, but the fact is we have a leadership here. They are bound and determined not to believe in Jesus, or at least not to follow him. They can't deny the truth that Jesus has raised Lazarus from the dead. So what they seek to do is control the information and perhaps create another narrative. And the way they do that is they want to kill Lazarus. He is the evidence. He is the truth about just what happened. But that's so typical of totalitarian, power-mongering leaders who simply don't want people to have the information they need to have to make their decisions on things. If that sounds familiar to what's going on in today's media, you shouldn't be surprised. It's what leaders always do, who find their leadership and find that the people are not wanting to follow them anymore. There's another issue here that is perhaps a little bit more of a challenge for all of us, and that is the issue that Jesus brings up in a metaphor. He talks about himself being like a seed that falls to the ground. And he says when that seed dies in the ground, it becomes something else. And it produces fruit because it has fallen to the ground and become something else. Jesus describes that as a dying. It's an interesting way to think about planting a seed. I think maybe what he has in mind is there's a transformation involved. When that seed goes into the ground and it's watered, it does in fact become something more than just a seed. It becomes a plant that can produce more seeds and produce fruit and be useful for us. Jesus uses this as a metaphor for our lifestyle, not only for what he's going to do by dying on the cross and being resurrected to a new life. That becomes a lifestyle for us. We are called to die. We are called to say that we will do that because we know that's the way we're going to be able to live. Jesus says similar things in all the other Gospels. In Luke chapter 9, verses 23 and 25, he tells his disciples, you have to deny yourself, take up your cross, and follow him. And he says exactly the same thing there that he says in this particular passage. He says, if you are attempting to save your life, you will lose it. But if you lose your life for the sake of the gospel and for him, then you will save it. It's one of those great paradoxes of Christianity. It sounds like a contradiction. Save your life but lose it, lose your life but then find it. That's what a paradox is. It's a contradiction, or it seems like a contradiction. I think we see this played out in the other parts of the New Testament where we're told we have to die to ourselves and live to a new life. We have to get rid of the old man of sin, and we have to live for Christ and do his ways and get rid of the sin that so destroys our lives. And think about that, because that's really the lifestyle Jesus is calling us to participate in. Get rid of the ways of darkness, live to the ways that reflect the light of his teachings and of his Father. Have a good discussion this week. Hope you enjoy this portion of Conversations. We look forward to seeing you next time.